I'll now call the meeting to order. Thank you all for being here.
Good evening. Notice of a public meeting of the City Commission of the City of Brownsville pursuant to Chapter 551, Title 5 of the Texas Government Code, the Texas Open Meetings Act notice is hereby given that the City Commission of the City of Brownsville, Texas, in accordance with Article 5, Section 12 of the Charter of said city, will convene a regular meeting on Tuesday, January 7, 2020 at 5 p.m. in the Commission Chambers on the second floor of Brownsville City Hall, Old Federal Building located at 1001 East Elizabeth Street, Brownsville, Cameron County, Texas. Everyone, please rise for the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance.
Leading us in prayer tonight will be Pastor Angel Gutierrez from Jehovah Nissi Ministries on Palm Boulevard.
Hello, thank you for having us here, Pastor Angel Gutierrez. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we come before you, Lord, this evening, Lord. We thank you, Lord, and we ask you for our city leaders right now, Lord. We thank you for the responsibility that you have given us, Lord, and given them to watch over this city, Lord. I ask for you to help them, Lord, with every decision that they make today, with every decision they have to do. I also pray for you to give them the supernatural strength, Lord, that you give through your Holy Spirit, Lord. I pray for each and every family member, Lord, that they have, Lord, as well, that they are home or that they're somewhere, Lord. We just ask for this meeting, Lord, to be pleasing to you as well. We ask you this in your mighty name. Amen.
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 And now we'll have a moment of silence so everybody can add their prayers to the prayers already spoken. Amen.
Thank you.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Next, we will begin with the proclamations. The first one we have is for Mr. Ernesto Lopez. If you would please come up.
So this next proclamation, are we on?
Yes.
This next proclamation is an honor for me to present. I have known Ernesto Lopez for quite a bit now, and he has done so much work. If any of you are familiar with what he does, he runs the Boss Car Club, but what makes that car club different is they have helped so many people and given so many Christmas gifts to children throughout the community that otherwise would be receiving nothing on Christmas morning. And so other than that, there have been numerous charitable causes of people who have fallen ill with cancer, types of leukemia in the community who had had no health insurance. And the first one to step up is Ernesto Lopez. And it's an honor to call him my friend. It's an honor to have him in the community. But more than that, it's an honor to know that he also served our country in the Iraq War. So it is an honor today to present this proclamation to recognize him for his outstanding work. His wife Lucy is also here. It's good to see you. And I will begin. So this is a proclamation of the City Commission of Brownsville, Texas, recognizing and honoring Ernesto Lopez. Whereas Ernesto Lopez was born and raised in Brownsville, Texas. He is 39 years old and attended Brownsville schools. There are two major factors that put Ernesto on the path that he is on today that includes major love for the community and its people that live there. One was strict but loving parents that may not have had the means to give him everything he wanted, but made sure he had everything he needed. They instilled a sense of responsibility within him. Whereas on June 27, 2000, he joined the Army and served his country proudly with tours in Kuwait and Afghanistan in 2001. While in the military, he started getting involved with our community by creating events under the Boss Entertainment. By using his military pay, on many occasions, he organized everything from the phone while deployed in Kuwait and on other duty stations. And whereas the group helped with drives to donate toys to local fire departments for the underprivileged children within our Brownsville and neighboring communities. In 2003, Ernesto founded Boss for the People, a 501c nonprofit organization to be able to help more agencies, shelters, and churches. Within all the events Boss for the People was promoting 25 positive boss values to motivate others while always a part: respect, innovation, gratitude, unity, commitment, generosity, integrity, community, goodwill, leadership, concern for others, teamwork, personal courage, creativity, love, loyalty, discipline, duty, determination, honor, equality, selfless faith, charity, and wisdom. Very good points, by the way. There, whereas in June of 2005, he received a Purple Heart for wounds sustained while on tour in Afghanistan. Now at home, he continued to be involved with the community, and in 2017 created a partnership with Zachary Thompson, owner of, I hope I say it right, Zine, right? Is it Zine? Zine, and the Zine's Boss Entertainment was born. That led to branching out of another sector called the Zine Amigos. The Zine Amigos do various charity events where all the proceeds go to families that have a family member that has cancer, medical expenses, and travel for treatment. With a continued partnership with the City of Brownsville, toy and school supply drives were done again for our community's youth. Hopefully, our events will encourage future adults and just community members to do the same. The children we help today will become the helpful, charitable adults of tomorrow. Since 2018, Ernesto has been teaching the youth of Brownsville and their families how to make backyard organic gardens so they can learn to consume cleaner foods. I tried to look at Dr. Gowan and I got lost. Sorry. Okay, so since 2018, Ernest has been teaching the youth of Brownsville and their families how to make backyard organic gardens so they can learn how to consume cleaner foods. Whereas Ernesto Lopez will continue to be involved with different community events, those that are for charitable goal. He will be spreading the seeds of determination, positive thinking, and so others get motivated and inspired to make a difference, a positive movement for a positive way of thinking. He encourages others to always follow your passion. Now, therefore, we, the members of the City Commission of the City of Brownsville of Texas, by the virtue of the authority vested by the charter of said city and on behalf of all of our citizens, do hereby recognize and honor Ernesto Lopez and encourage the residents of Brownsville to celebrate his contributions to our community, done on this 7th day of January 2020. Thank you. Do you want to say a few words? I welcome you to say a few words. Thank you. That was a lot of reading to kick off 2020.
Yes.
Well, first of all, I just want to thank God for the blessing and health that He has given me throughout my life. And without His guidance, I wouldn't be able to do what I've been doing. And I want to give a big thank you to my wife, my friends, everybody that's been part of the organizations, and other organizations that we've been working together to make all these projects. And I just want to tell everybody a big thank you. And even though it's under my name, it represents for the whole team that we did together. And we're glad to be working with the City of Brownsville on different projects. And thank you, Commissioner Jessica Tetra. And thank you all, and you have a blessed day.
Thank you, and thanks for your service.
Next, we have presentations. The Challenge RGB.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, Commissioners. This evening, we're excited to remind our citizens about the Challenge RGV. As mentioned previously at one of our sessions, this is Brownsville 2020. One of our big wellness initiatives is to get the community at large involved in creating a more vibrant Brownsville. And one of the ways that we look to doing that is by having this 11th annual event that has come to be known as the Challenge RGV. It's no longer the Challenge Brownsville. Just as a reminder, our events will be this Friday, January 10th, from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. at the Brownsville Public Library, the main branch and the southmost branch. And also on Saturday, January 11th, 2020, from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. And that's what we consider the actual kickoff at Linear Park in Brownsville at East 7th and Harrison. We remind people that everything is free regarding this event, and our sponsors who have worked very hard have allowed us to offer 3 people to win up to $1,000 per winner. We have certain categories and awards. There are the large group category for 11 to 20 people within that category. The first place is $1,400. Second place, $650. We have the small group category, which is 2 to 10 individuals participating. First place is $650. Second place is $225. And then we have the individual male, first place $200 and second place $50. And lastly, the individual female, first place $200, second place $50. If you have any questions or any basic information and requirements about the challenge, we ask that you can call our office at any time at 542-3437. As a reminder, this event is completely free, and the only restriction we have is you must be 18 years or older to register.
So I just want to, thank you, Art. I just want to add to that the challenge began many years ago with a wing and a prayer, so to speak, and the people did embrace it. We've set 3 world records with Guinness Book of World Records through the years, and we have now proven that the challenge is part of a tapestry that does reduce the rates of diabetes and diabetes-related illness in our community. So it's not just fun, it's not just free, it's also effective, and we can prove that scientifically. I would issue a personal challenge to the city manager and senior staff and every department head and every commissioner and mayor to participate in the challenge by one of many ways. Come out to one of the signature events. Show your support for the people of Brownsville that are working hard to make better choices for the year 2020. It's not that hard. It's free for you too. And events are genuinely fun. So come on out and participate in at least one event during the challenge. I promise you won't regret it.
Thanks. And you said this is the 11th annual?
Yes, that is correct.
And on, just really quick question, on large groups and small groups, is that taken as a total loss, or how do you determine who wins large groups or small
It's
groups?
percent.
It's percent.
it's percent.
Of
Okay.
body
As
mass.
a
Okay.
group.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not total pounds, it's
Okay.
percent of body mass.
I figured there was some ratio, I just didn't know. Okay.
Right. And they compete within that bracket, so it doesn't skew the other categories.
All right. Thank you.
I'm sitting here baffled because Rose just put me on a diet.
Well, she put me on a diet
She
too.
put all of us on a diet in front of all of you.
She started with Noel though.
Okay.
Next, we have the public comment period. At this time, nobody signed up, so we'll go on to the next agenda item,
Okay.
which is consent agenda items.
Do I have any motions?
Motion to approve?
We have a motion to approve and a second. Any further discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries.
Next, we have the public hearings. Public hearing number 1, public hearing in action on first reading on ordinance number 2019-1664, annexing territory to the city of Brownsville, Cameron County, Texas, and extending the boundaries of said city and adopting a service plan.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, City Commission. My name is Sandra Hernandez, Assistant Director for the Planning and Redevelopment Department.
Can barely hear you.
I'm sorry. Is it better?
The microphone's real
Tap
far
it to
from
see
you.
if it's
Yeah.
working.
There it is.
It is working, I'm sorry. I'll try to speak a little louder. Sorry. So this is a voluntary petition to annex city-owned property. It's located on the southwest corner of Southmost Boulevard and South Indiana Avenue. The subject property is located in the ETJ and is currently unpopulated. The subject property will be zone dwelling upon annexation, and it will be upzoned and brought to you for consideration at the February 18 meeting. The new base zoning will be medium commercial use. The property is presently used as a shooting range by the Brownsville Police Department and will be the future site of a tactical center occupied by BPD and the Texas Department of Public Safety.
Just really quickly, this is owned by the city right now, right?
This is a city-owned
Okay.
property, correct, yes. The subject property is located on the southwest corner of Southmost Boulevard and South Indiana Avenue and is comprised of 3 different tracts, about 32 acres each for a total of 95 acres. The property was conveyed to the city in 1965. And so here's the zoom out view of the subject map. To the north is the Brownsville SPI Airport, so as well as Lopez Early College High School, which will be, trying to see, will be right
Well, this is
here.
just up the street from Sable Palm, right?
Yes, and I was gonna say that Sable Palm is to the south of the property. And this map shows the municipal boundaries and how they are being extended to accommodate the new property. The last annexation in the area was completed in 2005, and it was for this particular tract right here. So here's the street view of the front of the property, as well as the corner of Southmost Boulevard in South Indiana. Chapter 43 of the Texas Local Government Code is essentially the code that governs the procedural requirements that the city must follow before annexing territory. Petitions made by landowners must follow a simpler process. Land does not have to be contiguous, but it does have to be in the city's ETJ. And before instituting any annexation proceeding, the city must comply with certain procedural requirements that I'll go over in the next few slides. First is the city must negotiate and enter into a written agreement with the landowners. In this case, is the city. The agreement must include all services that will be provided by the city on the effective date of annexation, as well as a schedule for all other services not made available immediately. It is important to note that the city is not required to provide services that are not specified in the agreement. The written agreement or service plan was included in your packet as Exhibit B. And the services that will be made available on the effective date are fire protection, police protection, permitting and zoning, as well as solid waste collection services. The property will require extension of utilities, and that's something that was noted on the memo and the agreement. So before the city can adopt this ordinance annexing the area, it must hold at least one public hearing to allow any people or any individuals interested in participating in the process or just to be heard. And the hearing must be properly noticed on the city's website and in a newspaper of general circulation. The hearing notice must be published at least 10 days before the hearing, but not more than 20 days. And the online notice must remain posted until the date of the hearing. So we comply with those requirements. As a recap, so these are all the steps that needed to be taken up to tonight. The first step was to mail out letters to the taxing jurisdictions. This was completed on December 5th. The hearing notice was posted on the city's website, and it was posted on December 20th through January 7th, which is, still posted tonight. The hearing notice was advertised on the Brownsville Herald, and that was done on December 21st. And tonight is the first and only public hearing on this annexation. So if approved tonight, the ordinance will, move on to the next meeting and to be approved for second reading. So at this time, that concludes my presentation.
Okay, thank you. This is a public hearing. Is there anybody here on this item? Okay, do I have a motion to close?
Motion to close public hearing?
We have a motion to close and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
All right, those opposed? Okay, do I have any motions on the item?
Motion to approve?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the item. Do I have any additional discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, and congratulations, Commissioner Galansky. You just gained 95 acres in your district.
Next, we have public hearing number 2, public hearing and action on first reading on ordinance number 2020-1569-A, amending Chapter 102 Utilities, and which provides for electrical, amending sections 102 through 204 and 102 through 218 to provide for adjustments to electrical service rates, fees, and charges for municipal street lighting and private security lighting, and providing a servability clause and effective date.
Good afternoon, Mayor, City Commissioners. My name is Leandro Garcia. I'm the Chief Financial Officer for the Brownsville Public Utilities Board. I'll be going over a short presentation here, and this hearing and first reading does pertain to a proposed amendment to Chapter 102, which applies to the utilities of the Code of Ordinances, specifically Sections 102.204 on street lights and 102.218 on private security lights. What we're doing is adding provisions for LED rates for the conversion of LED lighting. LED standing for light emitting diodes. So a little background, the Brownsville PUB engaged the firm of Black & Veatch to complete a cost of service rate study for the city of Brownsville, unmetered street lighting and private security lighting. And what do we have to do here when we have unmetered lights or use? We have to provide estimates, engineering estimates on how to build and do it on an aggregate basis, and that's what we're doing at this point. The study recommends a restructuring, a revision of charges for street lights and private security lights to include fixtures utilizing light-emitting diodes and future conversion of all municipal street lights to LED technology. Before we could even get the consultant underway, we had to internally conduct a physical inventory of all of the street lights throughout the service area. So we did dedicate some staff starting back in late 17, during 18, to go out there and do a physical inventory. The results were, now we have a good solid inventory in our GIS system that accounts for 11,614 street lights, of which currently 781 are LED and 10,833 remain for conversion. What we began doing during 18 at PUB is that lights begin to malfunction, we go ahead and replace them with LED. We're not replacing them with the HPS or the other types. We're just going in and maintaining an inventory in our warehouse of LED fixtures and replacing them with LED. So we've accomplished 781 thus far. On the security lights, the inventory resulted in 2,446. Now, some commercial customers have undertaken on their own to convert. We have about 166 LED lights out there with 2,200 remaining for conversion, which is up to the owners, the customers that provide either the flood or the area security lighting. So Black & Veatch did their normal study based on allocation of energy capacity and customer costs based on utility standards. They considered energy costs, fixed costs, customer costs, everything that as a utility is functionalized at cost and then allocated to customer services, to different classes, I'm sorry. So the LED fixtures, in essence, have a higher initial replacement cost than the metal halide, or what we call HPS, MH, or the high-pressure sodium, which we call HPS fixtures. But while the MH and the HPS need to be relamped every 5 years, and we've been doing that for over a number of years. On average, we spent about a little over $300,000 a year to maintain street lights throughout the city on an average. So we do have a major undertaking at PUB department that handles street lighting replacement or maintenance. So it does require more frequent relamping, unlike the LED fixtures that require replacement every 15 years. That's the standard average now for LED, and thus results in longer-term savings from not having to recover that replacement cost in a shorter time frame. The LED lamps have lower wattage consumption than the MHAPS, thus they provide a lower bill to the customer based on the lower energy and lower fuel costs. The customers also end up saving from moving to LED as a result of depending on which fixture they use. If they're going from a 100 HPS to a 40 LED, there's some savings there depending on the time. The customer savings would also be impacted by the FPEC charge, which is also based on a reduction in KWH consumption. So getting to the recommendations, we took this proposed change in the code to the board at our December meeting, was voted on to allow us to come to the commission to make the presentation and seek authorization. So the recommendations are that we adopt, the commission consider and adopt the rates for the transition of streetlights and private security lights to newer technologies. Two sections are being amended, section 102.204 and 102.218. 102.204 would include 7 different LED rates for COB streetlights. Right now, we don't have any LED rates for the city streetlights. We just use the municipal non-demand service rates, which we'll continue using, and then have an internal recovery cost that the board has been including in the bill since the late 80s. That is not going to change at this time. 102.218 includes 33 different rates for private security lights. This gives a commercial customer a broader range of options, different sizes, different types of LED, and corresponding HPS or MH if they want to keep the high pressure sodium or the metal halide. So if they want to keep those, we have amended rates for that. But it gives broader options to the commercial customer on how to proceed with their lighting fixtures, depending on sizes. So on number 3, approved continuation of current billing practices applied to the city of Brownsville, which in essence includes the continuation of billing the energy piece based on the municipal non-demand rates, which on an aggregate, based on lower consumption from LED, will provide some savings to the city, as well as a monthly fixed charge that will continue applying, that has been in effect for quite some time. What we're proposing, there's some language in 102.204, section B, is that upon conversion of every light for the street lights to LED, 10 years after, then we would start billing based on the LED rates, the 7 LED rates that are being highlighted in section 102.204. So we have them, we're asking to be including those on the code, but not utilizing them until we have full conversion. What the objective is here is to create some savings for the city, of course. So if we keep the billing rates that determines constant, and then expect or realize lower consumption, we're expecting to go from a current bill of $1.5 million a year that the city has to pay, that reduces the city transfer, to a potential of $797,000 based on we're expecting about $750,000 reduction in KWH per month upon full conversion to streetlights. So that's an annual savings of about $771,364 a year to the city. So we've been working together with Elizabeth, city staff, to work this in and utilize those savings for other internal projects that she can talk about. But we wanted to put this plan in place for 10 years and then enact or start using the LED rates. On the private security side, we do anticipate annual savings as well for the commercial customers that as they make decisions to invest in their lighting, whether it's area or flood, to convert to LED. We expect for them to also have some savings. We have, like I said, many of 33 rates. I don't want to go over any of that tonight, and the 7 rates for the city. So we are recommending adoption of these 2 changes to the code, and this is a public hearing, so this will be the first reading. Elizabeth, do you want to add anything?
Elizabeth Walker at the Office of the City Manager. I simply wanted to add how much I appreciate the working collaboration that we have with PUB. And I expect that this is the first of many steps by which it is we will potentially accelerate reducing our energy consumption and reducing effectively our bill by half, and then how it is that we would leverage that savings for mutual benefit. So thank you very much. We'll be back, more to be continued.
Thanks. This is a public hearing. Is there anybody here on this item?
So this is very exciting. The only question I have, the LED lights, I know they're a lot stronger, and sometimes they come in different hues than the regular light bulb that we currently use. Is it going to be an LED that resembles the current lighting that we have, or is it going to be that very bright blue? And the reason I ask is because we all know the wildlife and birds that live here in Brownsville, and I mean, I'm sure other places have LED lights. I just want to make sure that we retain the aesthetically pleasing visual that Brownsville has.
The seven rates that we have begin with a 40 watt, so that's new, the 40 watt and the 50 watt. Then we jump to 120, and then most of our stuff right now is like 250, 400. So our wattage reduction will dim the light, depending on how the engineers calculate all that. But we are making provisions for lower wattage, other than making a 400 to 400 switch.
But I think she's talking about the color.
The color.
Yeah, the
She's
actual-
talking
There's some
like some are
orange
bright
ones
white.
that are kind of.
The brightness.
Yeah.
Like, so, I don't know if you've ever seen it, but some are like daylight, some are soft white, some are, and it really makes a big difference when you have that outside of your house and you're trying to sleep.
We've received quite a bit of feedback from customers on that, so it's something we'll be looking at. Work with the consultant and the engineer, see what's more acceptable, what changes the industry is providing for utilities, so they can mitigate those. We don't have an answer right now as to how to proceed, but we do intend to seek out guidance on that. We're not rushing to complete the 10,000 remaining lights. We would do it over 5 years or whatever. We haven't talked about paying for the conversion of all those remaining lights. Right now, we're doing a few, a year. We've done 781 since late 17, early 18. So it's taken us a while, and because we're only replacing them or installing them when a current light malfunctions.
Right.
Breaks.
So
Really,
break.
really
Is
the
there-
suggestion, I'm sorry, Commissioner, the suggestion would be then just to be conscious of the brightness going forward so that we kind of keep up with what other cities are doing as far as brightness, to be conscious of wildlife or other people.
Yeah, and
Absolutely.
the color.
We'll
I
definitely
think
consider that.
There was some people here complaining to us
About
about
the color.
in Rio.
One person complained a
Yeah.
couple months ago.
Yeah.
But I mean, if it's outside your
Real Del
house, it
Sol.
feels like it's your house, and I just want to make sure that the customers and the people of our community are happy with.
You don't want the bright blue one that some people have in their car?
No, don't go put it outside my house. I know you know where I live.
And
First
we'll be
one.
open to replacing them based on customer feedback. It's something we're going to grow into. We just wanted to have the rates in place,
Right.
especially for the commercial customers, because we've been hearing from commercial customers, we didn't have any LED rates, and we're having to simulate a rate
Okay.
bill for them.
I have one other question. So even though you'll be installing these lights, you're going to maintain the same cost or the same schedule, and until 10 years are up, then you'll implement the lower LED costs. Is that
The
it?
actual LED costs that we're talking about.
But in the meantime, it'll result in less power consumption, so we
Moving
will
forward, the only
realize.
thing that will change is the consumption and the whole calculation.
So we'll
We're
start,
gonna keep the energy or the fuel factor may also change, but for the most part, it's going to be driven by the consumption.
But then does that mean that you're locking in the price for it already 10 years out? Or no? Or is it just that you're abating the cost for 10 years?
We're just working with the city so that the city itself can achieve some savings over, a few years before we actually start with the LED rates that recover future replacement of those lights. As I mentioned, LED lights carry a 15-year life, so sooner or later we're going to have to work in replacements versus the 5-year for HP and the current installations. So it may also reduce costs for us on the maintenance side, but down the road, we'll have to start recovering for that 15-year cycle. I don't know if that makes sense.
So the new rates will be deferred until 10 years after all
After
the
full
lights are changed?
conversion.
And in the interim, we're going to be achieving savings because the consumption's going to be less because of the power that's being put out by
And I want to be
these
clear, the
LEDs.
savings of 771
Well, that's an estimate.
will be based upon full conversion. We'll inch into it, we'll grow
Sure.
into that over
Okay.
the years.
And you're anticipating that the conversion is going to take a few years? Is that what you said?
5 years?
About 5? Is that what
We
you
haven't determined that. There's been discussions of a 5-year outlook, or if funding is available to have a turnkey project by an outside engineering firm or company, so.
And I think the consumer will really appreciate it because I know that I've been here for 8 years, and I've probably gotten at least 100 phone calls about burned out lights, and it's always calling PUB and waiting, and I think people will really appreciate that their light is not going to burn out as often.
We want to thank you for your patience. We got requests back in 17 as well. The biggest piece was getting the physical inventory, what's really out there and getting it on our system, because we had internal, turnover, and, the inventory wasn't maintained the way we needed it to have. But I appreciate your patience on that.
All right.
Thank you.
This is a public hearing. Is there anybody here on this item? Do I have a motion to close?
Motion to close public hearing?
We have a motion. We have a motion and a second. Those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Okay. We have a motion on the item.
Motion to approve?
We have a motion to approve
Second?
and a second. Any further discussion? Those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have items for individual consideration. Action item number 3, consideration and action to award a bid number CMB-70-1219 to Argeo Roofing and Construction for the roof and window replacement for the Children's Museum of Brownsville in the amount of $658,000 as budgeted.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Commissioners. Happy New Year. This item before you today is for the roof replacement that was discussed about a month ago. We received 7 bids for it, and we were fortunate to receive a low bid of $658,000 by RGO Roofing. Their references have been verified, and the supplier has accepted them as an equitable roofer for their product. We're recommending approval for this item.
Motion to approve?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Next, we have action item number 4, consideration and action on resolution number 2020-001, authorizing the approval and ratification of amendments to the bylaws of the Greater Brownsville Incentives Corporation.
Who's presenting this? And I had a question too, because the attachment that we got was a resolution for us to adopt. It also had just an attachment, which is the bylaws themselves. I didn't see any indication of what the changes or proposed anything is going to be, so I really don't know what they're asking.
Sure. So this item, Mayor Commission, the item was sent to you all yesterday. The attorney for GBIC prepared the documents, the resolution for approval and the bylaws. The bylaws include all the changes the commission had suggested to the GBIC board, with the one exception of the having up to 1 commission member on the GBIC board. So basically, it's just that one provision that's lacking. So that is something that the GBIC board did not approve. So that should be the only change within the bylaw document.
And what is the process? Because I thought, I was the only one that voted against it, obviously, but, I respect the commission, but what's the process? Because they created the bylaws, they sent it to us for adoption, which is, I know, my understanding is that's what's required. We adopted it, but we made a change, so I assume that the adoption with the change was the way that it would be going forward. Is that incorrect?
So we had used special counsel who came in and drafted the bylaws for the commission based on the direction the commission provided. There needs to be approval by the GBIC board and then a ratification by the commission of whatever they approved to finalize the bylaws. With the exception of the 1 commission member being on the GBIC board, everything else passed.
Right, so then I'm sorry, Commissioner, really quickly.
Go ahead.
So then, if we approve it and we ask for a change, then they still have to approve it, so that kind of
Correct.
takes away the point of us
Yes.
coming back and ratifying.
That's how I understand it.
That would not make sense, because if we ratify it the way we're required to ratify, and then they want to change and they don't agree, then that means that they're not in effect. That doesn't really make sense.
They
So-
can't veto what we
Right.
approved.
That's kind of what.
They in effect have vetoed it, and the attachment here has it in there in 402.3. Okay, so.
But Commissioner, I don't think that attachment's a proper one, is it? I don't know, because
That's
that
what
looked
they
like the
provided
original
us.
version.
That's the way their attorney interpreted how that approval needs to work, which is what we're providing the commission, and that's what the email had from Mr. Brunetta that was sent on Sunday.
Okay, so the minutes that we just approved say that after a brief discussion, Commissioner Neese moved to approve the bylaws with section 402.3 amended as not as not more than one commissioner shall serve on the board as recommended by Dr. Gowen. The motion was seconded by Ms. Galansky and carried as follows with only one nay. That means we approved it with that. They can't veto what we approved.
Not sure that it's a
They can submit
Go ahead.
some
You have a legal
bylaws
interpretation.
for our approval, and then we have to approve them the way
And-
we see fit, which
and-
is what we did.
And I'm with Commissioner Neese on this because it doesn't make sense that there would be a subsequent approval of our approval. That makes no sense.
That's
Because it
correct.
would be in essence a veto.
I mean, the next process is that they'll recognize the bylaws being handed down to the board, and they should ratify. I don't know that there's any
But what if
step
they
in the
don't?
process.
They can't
They
ratify
can't-
it. We ratify.
Well, I understand that, but they'll need to accept them and ratify them in the sense that they're implementing what's being sent. But there is no step in there where they can send it back to the commission, basically saying, we don't agree with this. There is no such thing.
So that, but what you're saying, the way I understand it, they're in effect. I mean, after our last meeting, we approved them with a change, so they're in effect as of our approval.
Right.
But you're saying that they have to ratify them
Well,
again?
it's,
What if they
no,
don't?
well, what it is just simple act of receiving them and acknowledging
Okay.
that they will be implemented.
Okay,
So
well, that's
there's-
different than just.
Well, yes, but the language normally used in items like this is where we ratify the implementation of the bylaws. It's just perhaps whatever wording you may want to use, but there is no decision-making where they can refuse to accept them. That is what is being handed down to the board, and it needs to be accepted and implemented, basically.
We approved the bylaws, and they got to go by the bylaws.
Correct.
I mean, that's
My question
period.
is if there needs to be an amendment to section 1, which says that they, as GBIG, ratify the bylaws. I don't know if that commission needs to change that.
Well, do we need to adopt some sort of resolution or whatever that document is?
No.
Okay.
Mayor, basically, when you all considered the item and you approved it, then it's referred to GBIC where they need to acknowledge it and accept its implementation. And that's basically the end of the line.
Okay.
I mean, bottom line, if they have an issue or they're requesting bylaw changes, they should be made as that, a request for the commission to consider a change to the bylaws. But I don't know if that's what we have here today.
So then, well, the actual agenda item just reads authorizing the approval and ratification of amendments to the bylaws of the Greater Brownsville Incentives Corporation. The last meeting, we approved the bylaws, so I don't
We can
really-
clarify.
And we're not
to their
amending
attorney.
anything.
Yeah,
They tried to amend it, and we don't have to approve it. I mean, the way it's written, but I don't even think that's proper either. We already passed the bylaws.
So then, if there's any sort of motions, just to clarify.
So there could be no action.
Yeah.
And we can relay back to Mr. Brunetta.
Okay.
That was a suggested request that they made to the city.
Well, may I bring up two other points? I was reviewing it again as we had sent it back to them, and I noticed that in section 4.023, it says that the term of each director shall commence on January 1st, and it says like regardless of when they start. So if you're going in to fill in someone's position in the middle of their term, does that mean they're going to have to wait until January 1st to fill in that position? Because the way it reads, that's how it would be implied.
No, but there should be some provision about vacancies that would clarify how vacancies are filled and when they would take office.
Because it says the term of all directors shall commence on January 1st of the first year of appointment and end on December 31st of the last year, regardless of the date of appointment to, qualification for, or assumption of said office. So doesn't that mean, because it says regardless of the date of appointment to, so that's
Council-
one issue.
Council, can you look at that? Can you take a look at that?
There's a vacancy clause.
There should
Separate.
typically be a vacancy clause that would address that.
Section 4 says, any vacancy occurring on the board shall be filled by the city commission in accordance with the governing laws, and by any director appointed to fill a vacancy shall serve only for the unexpired term of his or her
So then
predecessor in
Yeah,
office.
that should cover
So
that.
that covers the vacancy.
And then on section 4.07 about attendance, it says, it reads that either 3 consecutive absences or attendances reflecting absences constituting 75% of the meetings over a 12-month period. Does that mean that you basically have to have a 25% attendance rate until you vacate, or 3 consecutive meetings?
My understanding is that regardless of what the bylaws say, it's going to be the policy implemented by the commission in regards to filling these. And it says that if there's 3 consecutive absences, it's automatic resignation. And if there is a number of unexcused absences during a 12-month period that equates to more than 25% or the 75% rule, then at that point, you can reappoint, or he would not be eligible for reappointment.
True, so, even though our board policy supersedes then whatever's
does.
written here?
Should we just make reference to the city's board policy then, rather than have them write something different?
Our city board policy already has a provision that
Yeah.
says that any differences with any of the bylaws, unless are those bylaws mandated by state, trump any of the bylaws written.
Right.
So we should enforce that policy. It would be my suggestion.
So if we take no action today, the bylaws as we passed them last time take effect, including the 4013, right? If we
Correct.
take no action.
Correct.
Because the resolution here says that we approved their amendment, which was to remove that section. So if we take no action, our bylaws stand the way we approved them.
If there's no first or second and it fails on the table, then it fails on the table.
Okay. Do you have any motions either way, or, okay. There'll be no action?
Next agenda item, action item number 5, consideration and action on allocation of funding for Crossroads Interactive Festival.
Mayor, Commissioners, this is an initiative that it's styled in the sense of South by Southwest. So there have been a lot of initiatives in Brownsville where you have a film festival and then it kind of sputters out, or you have a music festival. And so the idea here is to extend the week of Charter Days so that a potential visitor would fly in maybe on a Sunday and would leave on the following Sunday. And so the dates that we have allocated for the festival is February 24th through the 26th. And the themes, as you can see on the bottom, it will include music, art, film, politics, and food. And the politics is really to try to leverage our geographic location and also all the attention that the border has gotten to communicate a positive message from the border instead of to combat the negativity of the border rhetoric. And the food, well, I think we all know how special the food is here in Brownsville. There are some renowned chefs that are from Brownsville, and we've taken some steps to invite them to come and participate, and invite them and honor their craft here in Brownsville and show their craft in Brownsville. We can't do any of this without a certain allocation of funding, and we also can't, so we've talked to a lot of music acts, we've talked to a lot of film acts. It all requires funding. So at this point, what we're requesting of the commission is an allocation of $100,000, 50 from CVB, and 50 from the general fund, the downtown parking meter fund. And we are in raising money. We are asking for sponsorships. We are going to ask for partners. But we can't really book anything or solidify anything until we have some allocation of funding. And so that's why we're here tonight, to allocate that.
Basically, Ramiro and I have been involved in this for a few months. We also had a couple others that started from the beginning. And we've kind of set it all up, and we've gotten a lot of tentative commitments, but the last portion is going to be just the funding aspect. And some of the tentative commitments, like for example from the chefs, is Jack Gilmore, PJ Calapa. We've gotten some musical acts that have tentatively committed to the dates that they are available. On
The consulate is partnering with a Oaxacan chef to bring in a Oaxacan chef. There's all these things going on. Film, the UT school, the UT Austin radio television film program is bringing in short films. We're partnering with RJ Mitty to bring in a kind of a headliner film from Netflix. So there's all these pieces that just require the funding to come together. And so.
And we also have, we've also discussed and tentatively had a Mexican director who's going to, I'm not sure if it's going to be a premiere, along with a Mexican actress that will be down here as well for the film portion. So there's been a lot of work done. It's really kind of moved along, but it's all been tentative until we can get approval.
And some media partners, or Texas Monthly is tentatively committed their taco editor. We're going to do a taco style event with Four Corners Brewery and that kind of stuff. And Texas Tribune, we're also talking to them about bringing in a speaker panel about, once again, about the border. And so there's all these things that need to come together, and I'm really optimistic they will come together, and this will be a one-of-a-kind, but not its first and not the last.
So my only
event.
concern, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
My only concern is one, $100,000 is a tremendous amount of money. I mean, from someone who's been here so long, I say this so often, but that is a very large amount of money for the city to be spending on entertainment. I'm not against this, I think it's great. But, and my other question is, have you talked to anybody with the Charter Days committees and felt like maybe sponsors might be pulled this way rather than to our parades and Sombrero Fest and any of that? Have you been communicating with them?
That was
Are
actually,
they-
if I may, that was actually the first conversation we had when this concept came out. Was the very first conversations we had was with Charter Days and Sombrero Festival, just so they could understand what the concept was and understand that it wasn't something that was meant to be in competition with Charter Days or the parades. In fact, it was something that would draw people for the entire week, and they would stay a different group and a different demographic that would ideally stay here for the Charter Days festivities and complement it.
And to add to that, the Charter Days organizations have been looking at expanding the week. This is part of what they've been wanting to do, so all of them, as far to trying to make it a bigger tourist attraction. So this was in line with their mission. This is in line with their idea, their vision.
And so this is going to take place at the beginning of the week when there's very few activity.
Right.
So,
There's none that I'm aware of, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
Yeah.
so with that, I'd move to allocate.
And so my last question is the city of Brownsville in charge of this, or how is it gonna work? Like, the money that's generated, things like that?
Yeah, I mean, the ticket sales will come back to the city. We are gonna, like I said, we are gonna go look for some sponsorships. We have some people that are interested that don't sponsor some other Charter Days events. And yeah, I mean, there's
The money
there's
that's
all that.
generated, do you know where it's gonna go?
I mean,
or
it'll go back into hopefully year 2, right? So that we're not here.
Is it for like a specific, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean,
No,
ideally,
and
it's
I
something-
fully support it, I just, people need to understand they're paying for it, so that's my only,
this is
We're
something
gonna
that
try to minimize that as much as possible.
that's, yeah,
You know,
that's all I
but-
ask of you.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. That's always what we try to do.
and I think there had to be an initial investment up front with the thought that it would be self-sustaining going forward. And it's something that's going to be a big driver for us, going forward. So we had a first.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Thanks, Ramiro, for your work on this.
Next, we have action item number 6, consideration and action on resolution number 2020-003 to amend resolution number 2019-091, authorizing the execution of an advance funding agreement between the City of Brownsville and the Texas Department of Transportation for Hazard Elimination Safety Project Off-System.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Commissioner, once again.
Mayor, excuse me, I'm going to ask that this matter be passed for the next hearing. TxDOT, their legal team contacted us on Friday requesting some changes to the language, which makes their request a little different than what has been placed on the agenda.
Okay.
And out of TOMA considerations, I'm asking that this matter be passed for the next commission meeting in 2 weeks. The language has been resolved, the resolutions have been approved by their legal and our legal team, but it no longer meets the description that we have under number 6.
Okay.
So I'm asking just to pass it for the next commission meeting so that we can.
You need to table it?
What
not
formal
tabling it.
action?
I'm sorry?
What formal action do you need from us to?
Well, we
pass it?
had it as an amendment because,
Okay.
as we discussed, the financials had changed, along with the monies that were going to be brought in by TxDOT in regards to this item. However, what they asked was that it not be treated as an amendment, but a new resolution. That's what their legal was requesting, and so it's just semantics, if you will. It's no longer an amendment, it's actually a repeal or replacement of the
Okay.
last resolution. So we
Well,
consulted with.
That'll be for the next meeting, but what do you need from us right now just to formally pass it?
Just that it not be considered and be passed for the next agenda meeting.
Okay, that's fine. Okay. Thanks.
Thank you.
So then that item will be passed.
Next, we have the board appointments. Action item number 7, consideration and action on resolution number 2019-109 to remove and appoint members to the Greater Brownsville Incentives Corporation.
Good evening, Mayor and Commission. I don't know if you need me here. I just thought I'd show up and answer any questions regarding the attendance roster that we emailed out.
So I had asked for the attendance record from you right before Thanksgiving, correct? And you sent me something?
Yes,
And then when we had our last meeting when they sent out the packet, it was the same report. But then the day of the meeting, it was changed, and all of a sudden, there were all these excused absences. Now, your previous JBIC bylaws, which are maybe still in effect, or I'm not sure.
Well, they should not be in effect anymore, however.
Okay, but back then they were.
Back then they were.
Specifically say how it is that you're supposed to excuse an absence. So were those procedures followed? Or which one's the true
Right.
attendance record?
So I'll say a couple of things on my behalf. Obviously, I don't, the board does not report to me. I don't go and ask them about their excuses or not, but they do report to the chair, and then the chair communicates either to one of our staffers to record it. We do record, obviously, like you do here. If you have quorum, who's here, who's not here, we record those things. But at the time, often we don't know why they're not here till later, right? So at the time when the initial request was made, we sent what we had in our hands at the time, right? And then when we shut it out, we copied, obviously, the board and the chair, who then replied back with, oh, this one was excused, that was excused. So we didn't learn of those until afterwards. So the second one is essentially the same dates. It might look a little different because we removed a lot of the unnecessary gray. The same dates, but with the added information that we received at the time. So that's why you see the second one. And we also noticed that we made one error in that on 8/15, we had put down Mr. Dennis Sanchez as absent when actually was a different board member. So we made that correction as well as adding the information that I just mentioned.
Then, Mr. Lozoya, what process do you have in place to determine whether absences are excused or not, and how do you actually determine that or log that in the
Right.
meetings?
Yes, Mayor. So at the time of the meeting, we note who's present and who's not, right? Because at that time, we may or may not know why the board member is absent. And the understanding is that the board member communicates to the chairman why they were absent, and the chairman lets us know whether he excused it or not. That's the process. And then we just make a note on our document.
But then I take issue with that because previous minutes have been approved that did not say that this person was had an excused absence. And so now all of a sudden, just in the past few weeks, all of a sudden all these absences are excused.
Yeah, again, I just enter the data that
Yes.
I'm told to enter, and I submit it.
That's part of the problem that I have. There's no standard procedure. It's just, and even the previous agenda item regarding the JBIC bylaws is testament that it's kind of the Wild West out there. So,
I would disagree.
Well, I think if we learned anything from this, Mr. Lozoya, it's that the logs and the absences need to be looked at very closely. And if there's some sort of emergency, it should be documented at the time of the meeting. That way there isn't any issues.
Definitely, we can definitely be much more proactive than we have been. I noticed that gap as well. But if I may add to that comment, Mayor, I think that the intent is for you and the commission to have board members that are engaged and provide the advice that you think they're going to provide as you make the appointments, right? And I'll tell you that, in my opinion, this particular board is new. They've experienced some changes, obviously with the elections of some of you. You've made some different appointments, so it's literally a new board. And with the new bylaws and with the new strategic plan, we'd like to continue the continuity that we think we have currently. And in my humble opinion, you do have an engaged board. Unfortunately, some of them had some family issues that needed to attend hospitals and the like, and that's all I can say. Again, the board does not report to me, but to your point, we can be a little bit more proactive in asking at least sooner whether it's excused or not, and document it sooner.
Right, I think you need to be only because it can affect the board member, obviously, if it's not done properly.
Yes, sir.
And I would agree with you, though. I think board members, our appointments especially, are in a way proxies of us, right? Or they should reflect us and and be independent and engaged and make tough decisions when they have to. So I would agree with you on that.
Any other questions?
Any other questions? All right.
So it's an action item?
Is there any action on this?
I still move to remove Pedro Cardenas.
We have a motion to remove Pedro Cardenas. Do I have a second?
So how many absences did he have then? Did he have the 75%?
Not if they're considered excused.
But it was, I mean, there were, I think at least 4 of them were family emergencies.
Right.
If he's unable to fulfill, as Mr. Lozoya pointed out, his obligations, then he's not serving a purpose there. I'm going to go ahead and second her
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. There's 2. I didn't, aye. There's 2. Those against? Those- Nay.
Nay.
Okay, so the motion would fail. But we will be definitely monitoring this. Mr. Lozoya, please advise your board members that we will be looking at this pretty regularly.
May I ask one final question?
Yes.
Is that allowable? So even, the thing that keeps rolling around in my mind is even if the absences are excused, there comes a point where how many excused absences are too many excused absences? And so if you're going to be more proactive about monitoring this, I mean, it's no one's fault if there are family emergencies, but at some point that person has to be responsible enough to say, you know what, at this point in my life, there's just too much going on, and I'm going to voluntarily bow out. And I go back and forth on that in my mind, but especially because there were no stipulations previously in about that. But from here on out, I think those things are really very important.
Especially on that
If you've
board.
got that
Yes.
much going on in your family, then you shouldn't be serving.
I agree. Okay, so the motion failed. Next item.
Action item number 8, consideration and action on resolution number 2020-002 to appoint a member to the Downtown Tax Increment Reinvestment Zone number 3, City of Brownsville Board of Directors.
Actually, it's not just one member, it's 2 members.
Right, at the last meeting, we thought there was going to be just one appointment, and Commissioner Tetra and Commissioner Gowan were going to kind of talk about that, but now it is 2, correct?
Yes, I concurred with Daniel Santee, our legal counsel on the TERS, and he did state that because we are a taxing entity, we can do 6 plus the taxing entity, which is City of Brownsville.
Okay.
So Commissioner Tetro, Commissioner Gowan, and I believe we were still missing an appointment from.
No, I think that was it.
Gowan.
No.
Then there must be something in the minutes that we need to, our minutes have an error.
Okay, because we were only missing that Tetro and
Some of us
Commissioner Gowan.
appointed at the very first meeting, I think.
Right. The only ones that were pending were Commissioner Tetra and Commissioner Gowan, so
Okay.
I would open up the floor for their nominations.
I would like to nominate Linda Ufflin.
And I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Commissioner?
I thought it was a county position, so I don't have anybody that I can think of on the top of my head. I would ask that we hold it for the next meeting. I mean, you have more than enough people to function the board.
Yeah, please.
I will
your
definitely
vote
have
for
somebody by the next meeting. I just thought it was a county position, and I was going to yield to Dr. Gowan.
Sure, Commissioner Tetro, no
Okay.
problem.
Thanks.
And
So-
to your
so-
defense, you actually didn't know that this was going to happen until today because of.
This was already discussed previously. I think you let us all
Well,
know.
What happened last time was we were anticipating that there was going to be one opening and that they were going to discuss it and there would be one appointment that they would, I guess, concur on. But now there's actually 2.
Well, I don't know, maybe I was the only one at Bryce, but I was already told that there was 2 openings. So I would just like to add that she's not ready by the next meeting.
think I made it clear I'm
That we open
ready.
it up
Right.
and
That's
let
fine.
anybody appoint.
You understand that, Commissioner?
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Did we vote on
Yes, we
Dr.
did.
Gowan's?
Yes.
Next, we have action item number 9, consideration and action on resolution number 2020-004 to appoint or reappoint members to the Transit Advisory Committee.
Good evening, Mayor and City Commissioners. On December 3rd, the City Commission tabled one appointment pending the desire to have a user of the B Metro Services serve on the committee. Staff reached out to five riders that use our services to express interest in serving on the committee. However, only one submitted the application. So therefore, we recommend I just went blank. Guillermina.
It's Guillermina, right?
Guillermina
Manjares.
Manjares, yeah. Guillermina Manjares to fill the position. She has been a user of Brownsville Metro Services since 2013.
I'll make a motion to approve her.
You're definitely going to have to learn her name because she's a new board member.
Yes.
I know.
Yes.
And I practiced it even before I came here.
That happens to me too, yes.
So we have a motion to appoint Guillermina Manjares as the appointee. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes.
That happens to me with proclamations. Like I even asked beforehand, how do you pronounce your name? And then I get up here and I forget.
And I
Thank
swear
you
I
for
practiced it.
looking.
Thank you.
Thank you for looking for someone who uses paratransit, transportation.
Yes, that'll be very valuable. Thank you.
Yeah, and it helps us a lot.
Yes, thank you.
Next, we have action item number 10, consideration and action to create an environmental and conservation task force.
So, Commissioner Galansky, we met and there was an interest in this particular area that, I know the last meeting there was LGBTQ, there was also the arts and culture, another area is environmental and conservation, that there's been a lot of emphasis through the stormwater task force, cleanups, et cetera. So we're asking for commission direction if there's a desire to create a task force that would look at what else can we do over and above what we already do. What we do now is some of the more basic legal requirements from either federal or state regulations from either TCQ, EPA, that type of thing. We have a staff member, Carol Vasquez, who is the environmental coordinator. She would be somebody that the task force can work with to explore what, in addition to what we do now, can the city focus on in these two areas that are related. So the commission can give us direction on the task force.
I really like, oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
It's okay.
I've gotten to ride along with Ms. Vasquez, and I think she's a wonderful person for this because she has worked in every aspect of the Public Works Department and really knows from the main drain to every other issue that we face. And I'm so hopeful that this task force can really, really, really make an improvement in our community because there are definitely areas where the city is just overwhelmed and overburdened with issues, and we don't really have staff assigned to help out our community members that really need it. So I'm so hopeful that this task force can really, really make a dent and be impactful to every single person in the community.
So my comment was that I get asked regularly every single year about curbside recycling. And I know that's just one small piece of environment and conservation, but it's obviously one that has a great interest among the community for many years. It hasn't died off over the last few years since it narrowly was defeated 6 years ago. There was a lot of really good professional scientific data gleaned from our local experts that are not necessarily city employees back then when that task force existed. And I would encourage you to include those folks because they do have a great deal of data that is otherwise just sitting on the shelf. I think it's a great idea.
Okay, so
Well, the idea was for the commission to select members that would serve on the task force. So whether you're ready today or want to come back next meeting, y'all
Okay.
can think through.
So do we go ahead and just form it then, and then
Sure.
bring the appointments next meeting? I'd rather just go ahead and
Sure.
form it. I didn't
That
think
would
of
be
an
fine.
appointment because I wasn't sure how the structure was going to be.
Right.
I have a couple people in mind, but I'd like to ask them.
Okay. So we'll just reset. If you want to create this, we'll come back and give you all the option to think through your appointments.
Okay.
And yeah, and I would just ask that whenever we create these task force and things, we place it on the agenda item to create, and then on the next agenda, create the positions and spaces, because we're appointing people who have not submitted applications, and we don't know if they're interested or not. And that's my issue with just appointing off the top of my head, because I want to appoint people who have the time and are ready to commit to serving these boards that are so impactful.
I have a question. So this task force, is it going to be 7-member task force? Which everybody?
That's been the
all
uniform
of us is gonna
standard that
have
the
one?
boards
Okay.
have.
Should
Right.
be that.
So additionally, I would ask, what if a person that is appointed serves on a board? This is called a task force, not a board.
Right.
Is there
So-
going to be an issue with that?
Well, it shouldn't, because the task force is technically not a board of the city.
Right.
Okay.
And he has a different focus. But what I may suggest to the commission today is that it's been noticed for the creation today. If you all would like to create it and just bring it as a filling of members whenever you're all ready, that could be accomplished.
Yeah, I think we should create it as well.
Okay, what we'll do, I'll go ahead and entertain a motion to create it, and then we can, what I would think is, we can go ahead, if we have an appointment, we can submit that to the city manager until the next meeting, and just put it as an agenda item for the next meeting to appoint whichever vacancies are still left.
Right.
Does that work?
That could be done.
Okay.
It's not as structured and as formalized
Right.
as a board. These are time-bound, they're ad hoc, they're issue-specific. So it's not the typical approach that a board or commission would take.
Okay.
I'll
Now-
make the motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve
Second.
and a second. Any further discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes.
Next, we have executive session item. Executive session A, deliberation of personnel matters pursuant to section 551.0741 of the Texas Government Code related to the evaluation of a public officer or employee, to wit, City Attorney Rene de Cos.
I'll move that we go into executive session.
We have a motion to go into executive
Second.
session. Second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Recess to executive session. We're back from executive session.
Do we?
Is now,
There's
Motion
no
to
action,
reconvene?
so-
oh, may I read the?
Oh, sure.
Well, it's now 6:59. I'll go ahead and read the item. Possible action on any items as discussed in executive session. No, the city well,
Okay, well,
Deliberation.
there'll be no action. So, do I have-
may I read the?
oh, okay, sure.
Deliberation of personnel matters pursuant to section 551.0741 of the Texas Government Code related to the evaluation of a public officer or employee, to wit, City Attorney Rene de Cos.
So no action on this item?
Be no action. Does I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Second. Any further discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Stand adjourned.